Every notification is a trigger. Every scroll is a hit. Your phone isn't a tool. It's a slot machine designed to hijack your brain. The average person picks up their phone 96 times a day. That's once every 10 minutes during waking hours. And most of the time, they don't even know they're doing it. It's not a choice. It's a compulsion, a neurological loop that was engineered deliberately, precisely, and systematically by some of the most brilliant minds in Silicon Valley. Former Facebook executive Chamath Palihapitiya said it publicly in 2017. We have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. He wasn't exaggerating. Since the rise of social media, anxiety among young adults has increased by 70%. Depression rates have doubled. The average human attention span has dropped below that of a goldfish. And loneliness, despite being more connected than any generation in history, has reached epidemic levels. This isn't a coincidence. Every scroll, every notification, every like is the product of psychological engineering designed to exploit the most vulnerable systems in your brain. The science behind it is devastating. And once you understand what's actually happening inside your skull, every time you open that app, you will never look at your phone the same way again. Before we break down the 7 ways social media is rewiring your brain, you need to understand the fundamental mechanism that makes all of it possible. Your brain runs on a neurotransmitter called dopamine. It's not the pleasure chemical. That's a common misconception. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It doesn't reward you for getting something. It rewards you for expecting something. And that distinction is everything. In the 1950s, neuroscientist James Olds discovered that rats with electrodes in their dopamine pathways would press a lever thousands of times per hour, ignoring food, ignoring water, ignoring everything, just to get another hit of anticipation. They weren't enjoying it. They were trapped in a loop. Social media platforms exploit the exact same neural circuitry. Every feature, the pull to refresh gesture, the notification badge, the infinite scroll, is designed to trigger dopamine release not through satisfaction, but through uncertainty. You don't know what you'll find when you open the app, and that uncertainty is precisely what makes it irresistible. Ozar Raskin, the inventor of infinite scroll, later said he regrets creating it. He called it behavioral cocaine. The engineers who built these systems understood human neuroscience better than most psychologists, and they weaponized it. In the 1930s, psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered something that would eventually shape the most addictive technology ever built. He put pigeons in a box with a lever. When the lever delivered food on a predictable schedule, the pigeons pressed it occasionally. But when the lever delivered food at random intervals, sometimes after one press, sometimes after 50, the pigeons became obsessed. They pressed the lever compulsively, frantically, endlessly. Skinner called this a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. Casinos use it in slot machines, and social media uses it on you. When you post a photo, you don't know how many likes it will get. When you open your feed, you don't know what will appear. When you check your notifications, you don't know if there's something exciting or nothing at all. That uncertainty triggers a dopamine spike every single time, not because of the reward itself, but because of the possibility of a reward. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz demonstrated this with brain imaging. Dopamine neurons fire most intensely not when a reward is received, but when a reward is uncertain. The anticipation is the addiction. Your brain is literally running on the same reward mechanism as a slot machine. And unlike a casino, you carry this slot machine in your pocket 24 hours a day. The average person now spends 2 hours and 27 minutes daily on social media. That's over 37 days per year pulling a digital lever, hoping for the next hit. In the year 2000, the average human attention span was 12 seconds. By 2015, it had dropped to 8.25 seconds. A goldfish holds focus for 9 seconds. This isn't just a catchy statistic. It reflects a measurable neurological change in how the human brain processes information. Dr. Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine has spent 2 decades studying attention. Her research shows that the average time a person spends on a single screen before switching has dropped from 2.5 minutes in 2004 to just 47 seconds today. And every time you switch tasks, your brain pays a cognitive tax. It takes an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to fully regain deep focus after an interruption. Social media doesn't just interrupt your attention, it trains your brain to expect interruption. The constant stream of short-form content, rapid scrolling, and algorithmic variation conditions your neural pathways to reject sustained focus. Your brain literally restructures itself around the pattern of distraction. Neuroscientists call this experience dependent neuroplasticity. The more you practice fragmented attention, the more your brain optimizes for it. Reading a book becomes harder. Deep conversations feel exhausting. Complex problem-solving feels impossible. Your brain isn't broken. It's been trained by thousands of hours of scrolling to prefer shallow processing over deep thinking, and the damage compounds over time. In 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger proposed social comparison theory, the idea that humans evaluate themselves by comparing to others. It's hardwired. You can't stop doing it. But for most of human history, your comparison group was small. You compared yourself to your neighbors, your coworkers, maybe a few dozen people. Social media obliterated that boundary. Now you compare yourself to millions, and not to their real lives, to their highlight reels. Internal research from Facebook, leaked by whistleblower Frances Haugen in 2021, confirmed what psychologists had suspected for years. The company's own studies found that Instagram makes body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. 32% of teen girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. Facebook knew. They published nothing. The mechanism is straightforward. Your brain uses comparison as a survival tool. It needs to know where you stand in the social hierarchy. When you see someone who appears more attractive, more successful, more happy, your brain registers a status threat. Cortisol rises. Self-esteem drops. And because social media feeds are curated to show only the best moments, you're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania found that limiting social media use to 30 minutes per day for 3 weeks produced significant reductions in loneliness and depression. The comparison machine had been fueling both. We are the most connected generation in human history. 3.8 billion people on social media. Instant communication with anyone, anywhere, at any time. And yet loneliness has been declared a public health epidemic. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy issued an 82-page advisory calling loneliness as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The health effects of chronic loneliness include a 29% increased risk of heart disease, a 32% increased risk of stroke, and a 50% increased risk of developing dementia. How did constant connection produce an epidemic of isolation? The answer lies in what neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman calls social snacking. Social media gives you tiny doses of social interaction, a like here, a comment there, an emoji reaction, that feel like connection but lack the neurological depth of real human contact. Your brain's social bonding system requires eye contact, physical proximity, vocal tone, and shared physical space to release oxytocin, the actual bonding hormone. Digital interaction triggers almost none of these responses. So you consume social snacks all day long, feel superficially connected, and never satisfy the deeper neurological hunger for genuine human contact. A study at the University of Pittsburgh found that people who spend more than 2 hours per day on social media are twice as likely to report feeling socially isolated compared to those who spend less than 30 minutes. In 2021, researchers at Yale University published a landmark study in the journal Science Advances. They found that social media algorithms systematically amplify outrage, not because they're programmed to spread anger, but because anger generates engagement. And engagement is the only metric that matters. The study tracked over 12.7 million tweets and discovered that each additional moral or emotional word in a tweet increased its retweet rate by 20%. Outrage wasn't a bug in the system. It was the system's most profitable feature. When you encounter something that triggers moral outrage, your amygdala activates. Your heart rate increases. Adrenaline floods your system. And you engage. You comment. You share. You argue. The algorithm notes your engagement and feeds you more content that triggers the same response. Over time, this creates what psychologists call a negativity spiral. Your brain becomes hyper-tuned to threats, injustice, and conflict. The world starts to feel more dangerous than it actually is. This phenomenon is called mean world syndrome, a term coined by communication researcher George Gerbner. People who consume more algorithmically curated content consistently overestimate crime rates, social division, and danger in their communities. The algorithm didn't just change what you see. It changed how you feel about reality itself. In 2011, Columbia University psychologist Betsy Sparrow published a study that introduced a concept now known as the Google effect. She found that when people know information is available online, their brains are significantly less likely to encode it into long-term memory. Your brain essentially decides, why remember this when I can just look it up? Social media accelerates this effect dramatically. You scroll through hundreds of posts, articles, and videos every day. Your brain registers each one briefly, then discards it. The sheer volume of information overwhelms your hippocampus, the brain region responsible for converting short-term memories into long-term storage. Neuroscientist Adam Gazzaley at UC San Francisco calls this the cognition crisis. The human brain evolved to process a limited amount of information per day. In a pre-digital world, that amount was roughly equivalent to reading a newspaper. Today, the average person consumes approximately 34 gigabytes of information daily. That's a 500% increase from just 30 years ago. Your hippocampus wasn't built for this volume. The result is what researchers call digital amnesia, the inability to recall information that you consumed just hours ago. You can spend an entire evening scrolling and remember almost nothing by morning. Social media isn't just consuming your time. It's eroding your capacity to form memories. Every time you post on social media, you're not sharing yourself. You're performing a version of yourself. Psychologist Sherry Tickle at MIT has spent 30 years studying digital identity. In her book Alone Together, she describes a phenomenon she calls the presentation of the edited self, the curated, filtered, optimized version of who you are that exists only online. The problem isn't vanity. The problem is neurological. When your online persona receives validation, likes, followers, compliments, your brain's reward system activates. Dopamine reinforces the behavior. Over time, you begin to identify more with the digital version of yourself than the real one. Psychologists call this identity diffusion. You lose clarity about who you actually are because the version that gets rewarded online is fundamentally different from who you are offline. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that heavy social media users scored significantly higher on measures of identity confusion and significantly lower on self-concept clarity. They didn't know who they were anymore. The performative nature of social media creates what sociologist Irving Goffman predicted decades ago, a world where impression management becomes a full-time job. But Goffman studied face-to-face interaction. He never imagined a world where you manage impressions for thousands of people simultaneously, 24 hours a day, with a permanent digital record of every performance. So what do you do with all of this? The answer isn't to delete every app and go live in a cabin. The answer is to understand the game you're playing and change the rules. First, turn off all non-essential notifications. Every notification is a dopamine trigger engineered to pull you back into the loop. Remove them, and you remove the trigger. Second, set hard time limits. Research from the University of Pennsylvania shows that capping social media at 30 minutes per day produces measurable improvements in well-being within 3 weeks. Third, never scroll first thing in the morning or last thing at night. Those are the windows when your brain is most susceptible to emotional manipulation and dopamine conditioning. Fourth, practice single tasking. Read one article fully. Watch one video completely. Train your brain back towards sustained attention. Fifth, audit your feed ruthlessly. Unfollow accounts that trigger comparison, outrage, or inadequacy. Curate for value, not for stimulation. And finally, replace screen time with face time. Real, in-person human connection. Eye contact, physical presence, shared space. Your brain evolved over millions of years for that kind of interaction. No algorithm can replicate it. Your brain was never designed for the world social media has created, but now you know how it works. And that knowledge is your first defense. If this video made you think differently about your relationship with your phone, subscribe to Hidden Motives. We break down the psychology behind everything you do, the patterns you can't see, the systems you didn't choose, and the hidden forces shaping your every decision. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next.